I hate it when I take an image that's got a crooked horizon or a vertical line that's off, or maybe I just should have reframed it differently but didn't when I took the picture. Now, those are all great reasons to use the crop and straighten tool, and I'll show you everything you need to know about that now. So in Adobe Lightroom, with your image selected down here on the bottom, you're going to just click R, and you'll notice that all of a sudden you got a whole bunch of features, and we'll go through them in detail now so you understand everything you need to know about this feature in Lightroom. So you'll see on the right, first of all, here that crop and straighten came up, and then it allows us to select aspect ratios, set the angle, and then constrain to image. But it also gives us these handles and features right inside the image itself. We'll go over both of them now. The first thing I'll point out about this feature is some of the crop features. So it's got these corners, and I can click on any one of them and drag it to crop the image horizontally, vertically, or both at the same time. The other thing I can do is by going inside the image, you'll see I've got those two carpenter squares. I can click and drag and release. And once you're there, you can obviously click and rotate around so you can get the image just how you want. The other thing you can do right here in the image without even having to go to the dialog box is to go outside, mouse outside the image, and you'll see that arrow that's got two arrows at about a 90-degree angle, it looks like. And you can click and drag to rotate the image. And you'll see that while I'm doing it, I've got this great grid line. So if I wanted to get that line vertical, I could have just clicked and dragged down until it was lined up vertically. Now when I release, the grid goes away. I want to point out a quick feature about that though. I prefer to keep it in auto, which is how it behaves right there. But if you click always, you'll notice that right here going horizontally and vertically across the image, there's a rule of thirds line guide. And if I rotate the image, again, I get that helpful guide here, and I release it, and I get the rule of thirds guide there. I'm not a big fan of that. You can also go to show no guides by going to never, and once that happens, I got nothing. Again, I prefer, and I think the most useful way to use this feature in Adobe Lightroom is to use it in auto mode, where it'll show me a grid when I want it, which is when I'm rotating an image, and when I release, it'll go away so I won't be distracted by it. So that's how you can use the features that are available here without going to the dialog box. But next up, let's go into the crop and straighten dialog box over here. Now, we'll reset the image by clicking reset, so we can start with the fresh image. And we'll just go down the order here, down the list. Now, I can, again, click on that dialog box, and I've got my standard crop feature. But I can also click over here on this aspect. And once I've clicked there, I've locked the aspect of the image so that when I click and drag on a corner, the aspect of the image, which would be the width, the ratio of the width to the height, remains constant. One of the things that's a little confusing is as I scroll down, you notice that it flipped on me there. Well, it turns out that the ratio is the same, right? The ratio is just flipped from the width to the height. A little confusing, but right? It's tall and skinny, and here it's wide and short, but the ratios are still the same. Honestly, I never use this feature to flip the ratio, but if you're going to crop for a print and you want just a certain area, you might find it helpful. I'll click reset. You'll notice that when I click here, I also have an option to select standard print sizes and also standard sizes for other application like video. Once I've clicked those, say 1 by 1, if I'm doing some social media work, I can click and drag, and the image will still allow me to adjust it, but it'll always maintain the original aspect ratio. So even if I move it around, or if I just click the height, it'll automatically adjust the width, so it's always 1 by 1. I recommend that you stay with standard aspect ratios, particularly because normally your images are going to be a series of images, and you want some continuity unless you're making a deliberate creative choice. Always keep in mind print sizes too, in case you're going to make prints later on, which is why these features in the aspect ratio are so helpful. Next up, let's talk about the angle. So I can click on this slider, and if I drag left and right, it's going to be adjusting the angles. Again, the grids come back to help guide me because I'm visually aligning that vertical line, which I think looks good right there, 2.94 degrees. I can release it, and my image should be roughly vertical. Now, if I want to be a little more precise, and this is the way that I use the straighten tool, is I can click on the ruler, and then I can simply click on the top of this vertical line and then on the bottom of it. And once I release it, it's given me 3.22, so it turns off that I think I was a little off when I used that slider, which is normally the case. That's why I like to use this ruler, which I just did under the straighten tool there. There is one other way that can be helpful sometimes, but I find is a little inaccurate when I want it to be accurate. It's this auto button. Now in this case, when I click it, it does a pretty good job, 2.47. I think that's pretty close to vertical here. I think actually it's probably rotating a little to the left too much still. In my mind, that line is vertical when it's right here. So 3.08 that time. So you can see that the auto will get us close. It usually works better when there's a real clear line that's going across the horizon. Honestly, I don't use it very much because it's not super accurate, but if I'm just in a hurry and want to kind of straighten it out while I'm doing a more important adjustment somewhere else, I might use it. There's a final button down here that you can click, and that'll constrain the image. You've noticed that this whole time, the crop has never, even if I click and try to drag it outside of the original dimensions of the image, it won't do it. And that's all that this function is ensuring. Honestly, Lightroom does that by default with pictures like this, so I wouldn't worry about that too much. Let's go ahead and make that final crop. So I can straighten it out here by using the ruler and selecting the edge. I can then hit return, and I believe we have a vertical line, which is what we wanted the whole time. Now, there could be other reasons for you to use the crop and straighten tool. In the next image here, you can see that, as is most common for images, I've got a horizon that's sort of slipping off the page to the left. Not a great scenario. Now, I shoot portraits all the time, and there's so many things to worry about, from lighting to smiles, expressions, and backgrounds. It's really hard to line up exactly to get your horizon straight. So I find myself doing this all the time. I can hit the R key, and again, I can click and drag outside the image to line it what I think is perfectly close there. I'll reset it to show you the other way that I can do this. I can click the ruler. Now let me give you a quick tip here. If you select a small bit of the horizon, just a few degrees or a small portion there, the distance between the lines was very close together, I think that looks pretty good, but I tend not to do that. I think a more accurate way to do it when you've got a long horizon here is to go across the whole image if possible. Or pretty close to it, because I can see a few degrees a lot better over this greater distance than I can when I'm just working with the shorter distance like we had the first time. So you can see I've got a good straight horizon there. I'll reset, so we'll take a look at what the auto feature does. I click auto, and in this case you can see it's done a pretty good job. Matter of fact, we'll leave it that way and just click done. Now we've got a straight horizon. There's another way or reason you might want to use crop and straighten tools, which is maybe a creative choice. So in this great picture of a pond that's got a water lily and a concrete structure here, maybe I want to make this top line straight. Well, I can click the R feature, and while we're at it, let's try it with a 1:1 aspect ratio. Okay, I can go ahead and click the ruler and select the top 2 points here in what my new image will be. Now that looks okay, but there's a problem. The water lily, it's outside of it now, and that's really not what I want. The two images, the two parts of this image that are really important are really that concrete structure and the water lily. So you saw that just by clicking and dragging, I'm able to slide this image, and Lightroom is really smart here, right? It's not resizing anything, it's not bumping this off the image, it's just sort of sliding the image with the way that I want the crop to work, and that looks pretty good to me. I'll reset it and show you maybe one other way we could have done that, which would be to select the 1:1 crop, rotate to use our grid lines, rotate, there, good, and then I can slide it from there, hit return, and I've got an image that's really tight on the two elements of this image that are interesting to me. Now, maybe the final reason that you would want to use the crop and straighten feature is because you've got a distracting element like this one, unfortunately, in your image. Sometimes it's just unavoidable. So I can hit the R key, and here's what I'm going to try this time, is I'm just going to take this line created by this distracting element, and there it is. Now my crop and straighten has done that for me, and I want this beast and this boy's face in the image. And you can see that I can't quite get there until I took it and I just clicked and dragged it up to get what I've got there. But I think if I actually click the Shift key and drag that corner in, see, that's allowed me to go up and get a little bit more of his face in the expression. By doing that, of course, I've lost a bit of the bottom down here. In my mind, that's an acceptable trade-off in less than ideal circumstances like we're in right here. All right, that's everything I think you need to know about the crop and straighten tool. Next up, we're going to be talking about something just as important that I use all the time as well. It's going to be the tone dialog box within the basic features of Adobe Lightroom that allow you to make some of the best corrections, I think, in all of the applications. So let's get started.